My name is Nigel, and at 68 years old, I never thought I would be standing in the snow on Christmas Eve, clutching carefully wrapped presents while my own daughter blocked her doorway. The words she spoke cut deeper than the winter chill. "There is no place for you here," she said, her eyes cold as the gathering storm. Years of strained relationship had led to this moment of heartbreak. But what happened the next day would change everything. If you are watching this, let me know where you are viewing from, and hit that subscribe button to hear how this Christmas confrontation transformed my life forever. For 40 years, I dedicated my life to being a surgeon. I saved countless lives, but looking back, I realize how many important moments I missed in my own family. My hands could repair damaged hearts, but I failed to tend to the emotional needs of those closest to me. My work schedule was relentless. 12-hour shifts, emergency calls in the middle of the night, weekends spent at the hospital instead of at home. I told myself it was necessary, that the sacrifices were worth it because I was saving lives. But those sacrifices came at a steep price that I only fully understood much later. Amanda, my wife, stood by me for 30 years. She was the bedrock of our family, the one who made our house a home while I was absent. She attended school plays alone, sat through parent-teacher conferences by herself, and celebrated birthdays sometimes with just a phone call from me, promising to make it up later. 5 years ago, cancer took her from us. It was cruelly ironic that after spending my career trying to save others, I could not save the person who mattered most to me. We had 3 children together. Jackson, my eldest at 45, followed in my footsteps and became a doctor, though he chose pediatrics and has always maintained a better work-life balance than I ever did. Thomas, my youngest at 36, went into architecture, designing homes while I was rarely in ours. And then there is Stephanie, my daughter, 42 years old and the one with whom my relationship has always been the most complicated. From the beginning, Stephanie and I struggled to connect. Perhaps it was because she was so much like me in temperament, stubborn, passionate, and determined. Or maybe it was because daughters need their fathers in ways I never fully understood. While my son seemed to accept my absences with disappointment but understanding, Stephanie took them as personal rejections. I remember her 8th grade graduation. I had promised to be there, but an emergency surgery came up. A child needed immediate intervention, and I could not walk away. When I finally made it home that night, Amanda tried to smooth things over, but the damage was done. Stephanie had looked for me in the audience and found an empty seat instead. It became a pattern that repeated throughout her childhood and teenage years. Amanda was always the bridge between us. She would explain to Stephanie why my work was important, and then she would remind me why being present for our daughter was equally vital. Without her mediation, we would have drifted apart much sooner. Stephanie grew up and married Brian, a successful businessman who, unlike me, prioritized family above career. I saw in him the qualities I wished I had embraced earlier in life. They built a beautiful life together and gave me 2 precious grandchildren, Lily, now 12, and Noah, 8. Those kids became my second chance at family connection, though that too would become complicated. When Amanda got sick, the cancer progressed quickly. 6 months from diagnosis to the end. I took a leave of absence from the hospital, but those decades of absence could not be made up in half a year of presence. Stephanie watched her mother decline and turned her grief into anger directed at me. Why had I not been there more when Amanda was healthy? Why had I wasted so much time? Questions I asked myself as well, but hearing them from my daughter made the guilt even more unbearable. After the funeral, our relationship deteriorated further. Stephanie began limiting my access to the grandchildren. I would hear about school performances or baseball games after they had already happened. Special moments with Lily and Noah became rare and always seemed to happen under supervision, as though Stephanie did not trust me to be a grandfather any more than she had trusted me to be a father. For the past 3 years, most of my contact with Stephanie and her family came through gatherings organized by Jackson or Thomas, Thanksgiving at one of their houses, 4th of July barbecues, birthday celebrations where I was invited but felt like an outsider looking in at my own family. I sent birthday cards, Christmas gifts, tried calling regularly. Sometimes Stephanie would answer, and our conversations would be painfully polite and brief. Other times, weeks would pass without any contact at all. The distance between us grew, filled with unspoken accusations and unresolved pain. During this time, I finally retired from surgical practice. The irony was not lost on me that I now had all the time in the world to be present for my family, but the damage of decades of absence had already been done. I tried to fill my days with volunteer work at free clinics, with hobbies I had never had time for, but the emptiness of my home reminded me daily of what I had lost. My sons tried to help. Jackson would invite me to dinner with his family weekly. Thomas would call to check in, sometimes bringing his wife and their new baby to visit. But nothing filled the hole left by Stephanie and her children, or by Amanda, whose absence I felt most keenly when faced with family conflict she would have known how to resolve. I was determined not to give up on reconnecting with my daughter, even as each attempt seemed to push her further away. I knew we needed to find a path forward, for all our sakes. I just did not know how to build that bridge without the one person who had always helped us communicate. And so we remained, father and daughter, connected by blood but separated by decades of hurt, neither of us knowing how to cross the divide that had grown between us. Thanksgiving this year fell on a cold, clear day. Jackson had invited the entire family to his suburban home, a tradition that had formed after Amanda passed away. As I drove over, I felt the familiar mixture of anticipation and anxiety that accompanied any family gathering where Stephanie would be present. The house was warm and filled with delicious aromas when I arrived. Jackson and his wife Kate greeted me with genuine affection. Thomas and his wife Rachel were already there, their infant daughter sleeping peacefully in a portable crib. When Stephanie arrived with Brian and the kids, the atmosphere shifted subtly. Lily and Noah ran to me with hugs, their excitement genuine. "Grandpa, we missed you," Noah exclaimed, showing me a loose tooth that was nearly ready to come out. Lily, getting older and more reserved, still gave me a warm hug before running off to play with her cousins. These moments with them were precious to me, bright spots in the darkness that had enveloped much of my relationship with their mother. Stephanie offered a perfunctory hello, barely making eye contact before busying herself in the kitchen with Kate. Throughout dinner, conversation flowed around me, but whenever I tried to engage Stephanie directly, her responses were clipped and dismissive. After the meal, while the others watched football in the living room, I found Stephanie alone in the kitchen, putting away leftovers. "The sweet potato casserole was delicious," I said, trying to find neutral ground. "Your mother would have loved it. She always said you had a talent for cooking." Stephanie stiffened. "Do not do that," she said quietly. "Do what?" "Use Mom to try to connect with me. It is not fair." I sighed, leaning against the counter. "I am just trying to talk to you, Stephanie, to find some way for us to move forward." "Move forward?" She turned to face me, her expression tight with contained anger. "Do you even understand what you are asking? You want to erase decades of disappointment and absence, because now, finally, you have time for family, now that Mom is gone and you are retired and lonely." Her words stung because there was truth in them. "I know I cannot change the past," I admitted, "but I would like a chance at a better future. For all of us. Some things cannot be fixed, Dad. Sometimes it is too late." She turned away, effectively ending the conversation. Later, as I was helping Brian load their car with leftover containers, I overheard Stephanie talking to him near the garage. "I just wish Dad would stop trying," she said, her voice carrying in the cold evening air. "Every time I see him, it brings back all those empty seats at my events, all those broken promises. I cannot pretend it did not happen just because he is ready to play happy family now." Brian's response was too quiet to hear, but the damage was done. I finished loading the food containers and retreated to my car without saying goodbye, the weight of her words settling heavily on my shoulders. The following week, Jackson called to check in. During our conversation, he mentioned Stephanie's Christmas plans. "She is going all out this year," he said, "decorating every inch of the house, planning this elaborate meal, buying way too many presents for the kids. She keeps talking about making the perfect Christmas memories for Lily and Noah." "That sounds nice," I said, trying to keep the longing from my voice. "She has not mentioned inviting you," Jackson added carefully. But I think you should reach out anyway. Christmas is about family, about forgiveness. Maybe this could be a turning point." His encouragement gave me hope. Perhaps the holiday spirit would soften Stephanie's heart. Perhaps this could indeed be our turning point. I began preparing weeks in advance. I spent days selecting meaningful gifts for everyone. For Brian, a rare first edition of his favorite novel that I had tracked down through a collector friend. For Lily, art supplies that matched her growing interest in painting. For Noah, a set of science experiments appropriate for his curious mind. But for Stephanie, I chose something special. From Amanda's jewelry collection, I selected a sapphire necklace that had been a 20th anniversary gift. Stephanie had always admired it on her mother. I placed it in a velvet box with a handwritten letter explaining its significance and expressing my hope that she would accept this piece of her mother's legacy, along with my sincere desire to heal our relationship. I also spent weeks in my basement workshop, carefully carving wooden toys for Lily and Noah. An intricate dollhouse with miniature furniture for Lily. A set of wooden cars with moving parts for Noah. The kind of gifts that store money could not buy, infused with hours of careful attention and love. The most special gift, however, came from an unexpected discovery. While cleaning out a storage closet, I found boxes of old family films, 8mm footage from when the children were young. Birthday parties, Christmas mornings, summer vacations, moments captured in time when our family was whole. I spent a small fortune having them professionally converted to digital format, then hours editing them into thoughtful collections. One specifically for Stephanie, showing moments she might not even remember. Her first steps, Amanda teaching her to bake cookies, a father-daughter dance when she was 6, one of the rare occasions when I had managed to be fully present. As Christmas approached, my hope built. I called Stephanie several times, but each call went to voicemail. I left cheerful messages, asking about their holiday plans, suggesting I might stop by with gifts for the children. No response came. Finally, 3 days before Christmas, I received a text message. "We are keeping Christmas small this year. Just immediate family. We will see you at Jackson's for New Year's." The dismissal was clear, but something in me refused to accept it. Family should be together at Christmas. I had missed too many holidays due to work. Now that I had the time, I was determined not to miss another one due to unresolved tension. I decided I would go anyway, bringing my carefully chosen gifts and hoping that the spirit of the season might open a door that had long been closed to me. Christmas Eve arrived with a gray sky threatening snow. I spent the morning wrapping the final presents, each one with careful precision. The sapphire necklace for Stephanie, the handcrafted wooden toys for my grandchildren, the book for Brian, the digital collection of family memories that I hoped might bridge the chasm between past and present. I arranged everything in large gift bags decorated with snowmen and reindeer, the kind that would make children's eyes light up. Despite Stephanie's text, I felt certain that once I arrived with these tokens of love, she would not turn me away on Christmas Eve. Not with the children there, excited for the holiday. As I loaded the gifts into my car, the first snowflakes began to fall, light and delicate at first, then growing steadier as I drove across town towards Stephanie's neighborhood. The streets were quiet, most people already tucked away with their families for the evening. The drive gave me time to reflect, to remember Christmases past when the children were young, Amanda organizing matching pajamas for everyone, the excitement on Christmas morning as small feet thundered down the stairs toward the tree. I had missed some of those mornings due to hospital emergencies, but the ones I had been present for remained vivid in my memory. Stephanie's neighborhood was transformed into a winter wonderland. Every house adorned with lights and decorations, inflatable snowmen and Santas on lawns, wreaths on doors. The perfect suburban Christmas scene, with my daughter's house among the most elaborately decorated. Multicolored lights outlined the roof and windows. A large illuminated snowman stood sentinel in the yard. Through the front windows, I could see their Christmas tree, tall and glittering with ornaments. The perfect setting for the perfect Christmas she had planned. I parked at the curb and gathered my courage along with the gift bags. The snow was falling more heavily now, accumulating on my coat and in my thinning hair as I made my way up the walkway to the front door. From inside, I could hear Christmas music playing and the sound of children's laughter. My heart ached with longing to be part of that scene. Taking a deep breath, I rang the doorbell. The wait seemed eternal before the door swung open. Stephanie stood there, her expression shifting from expectation to shock to anger in the space of seconds. "Dad? What are you doing here?" Her voice was low, controlled, but with an edge that cut like glass. "Merry Christmas," I said, trying to sound cheerful despite the sinking feeling in my stomach. "I brought some gifts for the children, and for you and Brian." She did not move from the doorway. Behind her, I caught glimpses of the warm scene inside, a fire crackling in the fireplace, the smell of cinnamon and pine, Lily and Noah peeking curiously around a corner to see who had come to the door. "I told you we were keeping Christmas small this year," Stephanie said, her voice tight. "Just immediate family." The implication that I was not immediate family struck me like a physical blow. "Stephanie, I am your father. It is Christmas Eve. Surely we can set aside our differences for one night, for the children's sake." Her expression hardened. "This is exactly the problem. You think you can just show up whenever it is convenient for you and expect to be welcomed with open arms. That is not how this works. Not anymore." "Grandpa!" Noah called out, starting to run toward the door before his mother stopped him with a raised hand. "Go back to the living room, Noah," she said without taking her eyes off me. "Grandpa is not staying." The confusion and disappointment on my grandson's face added another layer to the pain I was already feeling. Lily appeared behind her brother, her expression equally confused but more guarded, already learning to hide her emotions as she approached her teenage years. "Stephanie, please," I said, my voice dropping to ensure only she could hear me. "Do not do this. Not tonight. Let me give the children their presents at least." "There is no place for you here," she said firmly, the words deliberate and final. "Not after everything. Not after all the times you chose not to be present. You do not get to decide when you want to be family." I stood there, the snow falling around me, gift bags growing heavy in my hands. Behind Stephanie, Brian appeared, his expression uncomfortable as he witnessed the confrontation. He placed a hand on her shoulder, whether in support or restraint I could not tell. "Stephanie," he began, but she shook her head sharply. "No, Brian. I have been clear about this. Dad knew we were not including him tonight. He chose to ignore that because what I want does not matter to him. It never has." The unfairness of that statement burned, but I swallowed my defense. This was not the time or place for the conversation we needed to have. Not on her doorstep on Christmas Eve with children watching and neighbors potentially witnessing. "I understand," I said, though I did not. "Not really. I will go. But please, take these for the children. And this one is for you and Brian." I set most of the bags down on the porch, keeping only one small one containing the digital memories. Something made me hold that one back. Perhaps a sense that it would not be appreciated in her current state of mind. "Merry Christmas," I said again, quieter this time. Then I turned and walked back through the thickening snow to my car, feeling her eyes on my back the entire way. As I drove home through the increasingly treacherous roads, tears blurred my vision. I wiped them away, impatiently, focusing on the practical task of driving safely. But inside, a storm matched the one outside. How had we come to this? How had I failed so completely as a father that my own daughter would turn me away on Christmas Eve? The house was dark when I returned. No decorations outside, just a small tree in the living room window that I had put up more out of habit than celebration. I carried the remaining gift bag inside and set it under the tree, then stood in the silent house listening to the emptiness. This was not how Christmas was supposed to be. This was not the legacy Amanda and I had intended to create. Somewhere along the way, I had lost not just my wife but a crucial connection to the family we had built together. And on this night meant for togetherness and joy, that loss felt more profound than ever before. Sleep eluded me that Christmas Eve. I sat in my armchair near the window, watching snow blanket the world outside in pristine white, while my thoughts tumbled darkly. The house creaked and settled around me, its emptiness a physical presence. Around midnight, I moved to my study and pulled out photo albums I had not looked at in years. Pictures of Stephanie as a baby, cradled in Amanda's arms while I stood proudly beside them. Stephanie on her first bicycle, training wheels still attached, my hand on the seat to steady her. Stephanie at dance recitals, in Halloween costumes, blowing out birthday candles. So many captured moments. But what struck me now, looking with fresh eyes, was how many of these photos featured Amanda with our daughter, and how relatively few included me. Evidence of my absence preserved in photographic negative space. I found a picture of Stephanie's high school graduation. I had made it to that one, rearranging surgeries and calling in favors to ensure I would be there. In the photo, we stood side by side, but there was already a distance between us that the camera had somehow captured. Her smile did not quite reach her eyes. My hand hovered near her shoulder but did not quite touch it. A metaphor for our relationship, so close yet disconnected. As the night deepened, I forced myself to confront truths I had avoided. Yes, I had saved lives as a surgeon. Yes, that work had been important, but I had used it as an escape too. The hospital had been simpler in many ways than the messy, complicated business of family life. In the operating room, I always knew my role. At home, I had often felt uncertain, especially with Stephanie, whose emotional needs seemed more complex than her brother's. I remembered a career day at her elementary school. I had promised to come speak about being a doctor, had even prepared a child-friendly presentation with plastic models and simple explanations. An emergency surgery came up, a teenager with appendicitis, a routine procedure, one I could have passed to another surgeon, but I had taken it, telling myself it was my responsibility, when perhaps the deeper truth was that I had been afraid of standing in front of a classroom of children, afraid of my own daughter's expectations. When I called the school to cancel, the disappointment in Stephanie's voice had been palpable. "It is okay, Dad," she had said. "Mom already found someone else to come. She said you probably would not make it." The resignation in her voice, the fact that at 8 years old she had already learned to expect my absence, haunted me now. There had been a father-daughter dance when she was 13. I had marked it on my calendar months in advance, had even rented a tuxedo. Then a multiple car accident sent 6 critical patients to our trauma center, and I spent the night in surgery instead of dancing with my daughter. Amanda took her shopping the next day to console her. I worked through the weekend. As dawn broke on Christmas Day, my anger at Stephanie's rejection had transformed into a deeper understanding of her pain. I had taught her, through decades of broken promises and missed moments, that she could not count on me. Why should she believe things would be different now? The snow continued falling as daylight strengthened. I made coffee and toast, a poor substitute for Christmas breakfast, and sat at my kitchen table alone. For the first time in many Christmases, I did not turn on the television to fill the silence. Instead, I let myself feel the full weight of my solitude and its causes. I considered calling Stephanie but decided against it. She had made her boundaries clear, and respecting them was perhaps the first step toward showing her I could change. Instead, I sent a simple text. "Thinking of you all today. Merry Christmas. Love, Dad." I did not expect a response, nor did I receive one. Around midday, Jackson called to wish me Merry Christmas. "How are you doing, Dad?" he asked, concern evident in his voice. "I have been better," I admitted. "I tried to visit Stephanie last night. It did not go well." Jackson sighed. "I heard. She called Thomas this morning pretty upset." "She was upset? I am the one who got turned away on her doorstep." "I know, Dad. It is complicated. But for what it is worth, the gifts were taken inside. Brian brought them in after you left. That small detail provided a measure of comfort. At least my grandchildren would have their presents. Thank you for telling me that." "Do not give up on her," Jackson said before we ended the call. "Stephanie has always been the one who feels things most deeply. That includes love, as well as hurt." Thomas called shortly after with similar encouragement, though neither of my sons could offer concrete advice on how to bridge the chasm between Stephanie and me. That was something only she and I could figure out together, if she would ever give us the chance. As afternoon faded into evening, I heated up a frozen dinner that bore little resemblance to a Christmas feast. The house remained quiet, except for the occasional sound of plows clearing the streets outside. I thought about Amanda, about what she would say if she could see our family now. She had always been the peacemaker, the emotional interpreter who helped Stephanie and me understand each other. Without her, we had lost that crucial translation, like speakers of different languages trying to communicate without an interpreter. True love, I realized, sometimes means accepting rejection and still leaving the door open. It means acknowledging hurt without defending yourself against it. It means understanding that forgiveness cannot be demanded, only earned through changed behavior over time. As I cleared away my meager Christmas dinner, I resolved that whatever happened next, I would approach Stephanie with greater understanding of her perspective. The past could not be changed, but perhaps the future still could be, if I found the courage and humility to meet my daughter where she was, rather than where I wished her to be. The doorbell rang as twilight settled over the snow-covered neighborhood. Christmas Day was waning, the shortest day of the year, already surrendering tonight. I had not expected any visitors and approached the door cautiously. Through the peephole, I saw Brian standing on my porch, shifting his weight from foot to foot, his breath visible in the cold air. Surprise and confusion flooded through me as I opened the door. "Brian," I said, unable to keep the question from my voice. "Is everything all right? Are the kids okay?" "Everyone is fine, Nigel," he assured me quickly. "Can I come in for a minute? It is freezing out here." I stepped aside, gesturing him into the warmth of the house. He stomped snow from his boots and unwound a scarf from around his neck, his movements betraying a nervous energy. "Can I get you something? Coffee? Something stronger?" I offered, falling back on social niceties to mask my bewilderment at his presence. "No, thank you. I cannot stay long." He remained standing in the entryway, as though uncertain about fully entering the house. I came to talk about last night. A knot formed in my stomach. Had he come to further explain why I was unwelcome? To formally sever ties on behalf of his wife? "I understand Stephanie's position," I said, trying to preempt what I assumed would be an uncomfortable conversation. "I should not have shown up uninvited." Brian shook his head. "That is not why I am here." He paused, seeming to gather his thoughts. "After you left, we brought the presents inside. The kids opened theirs this morning. They love the wooden toys, by the way. Noah has hardly put those cars down all day." "I am glad," I said, a small warmth kindling at the thought of my grandchildren enjoying my handiwork. "Stephanie waited until this afternoon to open the gift you left for her," Brian continued. "The sapphire necklace that belonged to Amanda, and the letter explaining its significance," I added. "Did she read it?" Brian nodded. "She did, but that is not what I came to talk about. It is the USB drive we found at the bottom of the bag. We plugged it into the TV to see what was on it. I had forgotten about the thumb drive containing the digitized family films, which must have fallen to the bottom of one of the gift bags I had left. A serendipitous accident. Stephanie watched those old family videos for hours," Brian said, his voice softening. "She saw herself as a little girl with you and Amanda. Birthday parties, Christmas mornings, family vacations, moments she claimed she had forgotten or never knew had been captured. I could picture it. My daughter watching her own childhood play out on the screen, seeing moments of connection and joy that had been overshadowed in her memory by the disappointments and absences. There was one clip in particular," Brian continued. "You were teaching her to ride a bike without training wheels. She kept falling, and you kept encouraging her to try again. When she finally made it down the driveway, the camera caught both your faces. Your pride in her, her joy at her accomplishment, and at having earned your approval. I remembered that day clearly. I had taken a rare weekend off specifically to help Stephanie master two-wheel riding. She had been 7, determined but frustrated by repeated failures until something finally clicked. She watched that clip at least 5 times, Brian said. Then she found the jewelry box again and reread your letter. She has been crying on and off all afternoon. I did not know what to say. I had not intended the videos as a manipulation of Stephanie's emotions, but as a genuine gift of shared memories. That they had affected her so deeply both gratified and concerned me. I encouraged her to watch the videos, Brian admitted. When she saw the thumb drive, she wanted to set it aside. She was still angry about last night, but I told her she should at least see what was on it before dismissing it. "Thank you for that," I said sincerely. Brian shifted uncomfortably. Look, I have tried to stay neutral in this situation. Stephanie is my wife, and I support her. But I also see how much the kids miss having you around. Lily asked this morning why Grandpa could not stay last night. Noah wanted to know if you were alone for Christmas. Kids pick up on these things, you know? They sense the tension. I never wanted to put them in the middle of this, I said, pained at the thought of my grandchildren caught in adult conflict. No one does, but it happens anyway. Brian sighed. The point is, Stephanie is in a different place now than she was last night. Those videos showed her a side of your relationship she had lost sight of. The letter with the necklace touched her. I think she might be ready to talk. Really talk. Hope flickered to life, fragile as a candle flame in winter wind. Are you saying I should try again? Call her? I am saying you should come back to the house with me now, Brian said decisively. The kids are watching a Christmas movie. Stephanie is wearing Amanda's necklace. I cannot promise it will be easy, but I think this could be a turning point if you are both willing to meet halfway. Fear and hope warred within me. The prospect of another rejection loomed large, but the possibility of reconciliation beckoned stronger. Are you sure this is what Stephanie wants? I do not want to intrude again if she is not ready. She does not know I am here, Brian admitted. This was my idea, but I would not have come if I did not think she was open to it. She has been looking at old photo albums since watching those videos. I think she needs this as much as you do. I thought for a long moment, then nodded. Let me get my coat. As we drove back through the snow-covered streets, anxiety mounted in my chest. The evening had taken an unexpected turn, offering a hope I had not dared entertain hours earlier. But hope was a double-edged sword, offering possibility, while sharpening the pain of potential disappointment. Whatever awaited me at Stephanie's house, I knew this might be our best chance to begin healing the wounds of the past. I could only pray we would both find the courage to take the first difficult steps toward each other. Stephanie's house came into view, Christmas lights twinkling against the darkening sky. Brian parked in the driveway and turned to me before we got out. Just be patient, he advised. This will not fix everything in one night. I nodded, understanding the wisdom in his words. Decades of hurt could not be erased in a single conversation, no matter how heartfelt. We walked up to the front door together, my footsteps following the same path I had taken the night before, but with an entirely different feeling in my heart. Brian opened the door without knocking and gestured me inside. The house was warm and smelled of pine from the Christmas tree, mixed with lingering aromas of the holiday dinner. From the living room came the sound of a children's movie, animated voices and cheerful music. And then Stephanie appeared in the hallway. Her eyes were red-rimmed, evidence of the tears Brian had mentioned. Around her neck gleamed Amanda's sapphire necklace, the blue stone catching the light. She stopped several feet away from me, her posture tense but not closed off. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. What do you say after a lifetime of miscommunication, after bitter words and a door closed in rejection? All the carefully constructed sentences I had rehearsed in my mind evaporated, leaving only raw emotion. Dad, she finally said, the word falling between us like a bridge neither was sure would hold. Stephanie, I replied, my voice rougher than I intended. Brian thought. He said you might be willing to talk. She glanced at her husband, who gave her an encouraging nod before tactfully retreating toward the living room, where the children were watching their movie. Alone in the entryway, Stephanie and I faced each other, 42 years of shared history hovering between us. I am sorry about last night, she said, the words clearly difficult for her. I should not have turned you away like that. Not on Christmas Eve, not in front of the kids. Her apology surprised me. I had come prepared to offer my own regrets, not to receive hers. I should have respected your boundaries, I countered. You told me you wanted a small Christmas. I showed up anyway. Stephanie reached up to touch the necklace at her throat. I watched those videos, she said softly. All afternoon, I saw things I had forgotten. Good things, times when you were there. Really there. I wish there had been more of those moments, I said honestly. Looking back, I see all the times I chose wrong. All the times I put work before family. The bike riding, she said, a faint smile touching her lips. I remember that day now. You spent hours with me in the driveway, I kept falling. You kept picking me up. You were so determined, I recalled, smiling at the memory. You would not quit until you got it. Your mother wanted to call it a day when it started getting dark, but you insisted on one more try. And I did it, Stephanie said. I rode all the way down the driveway without falling. You were fearless, I said, the pride I had felt then resurging now. You always were. From the living room came the sound of childish laughter. Stephanie glanced that way, then back at me. The kids have been asking about you all day, after they opened your gifts. Lily loves the dollhouse. She said no one else would have made something so special. I would like to see them, I said cautiously, if that is okay with you. Stephanie hesitated, then nodded. They would like that. We moved together toward the living room, the physical distance between us a reflection of the emotional space still to be navigated. As we entered, Noah spotted me first. "Grandpa!" he shouted, leaping up from his position on the floor surrounded by the wooden cars I had carved. "You came back. Look what you made me. This one is my favorite." He held up a small fire truck with movable ladder. Lily was more reserved, a preteen's self-consciousness tempering her reaction, but her smile was genuine as she came to give me a hug. "Thank you for the dollhouse, Grandpa. It is amazing." "You are welcome, sweetheart," I said, my throat tight with emotion. Brian watched the reunion with satisfaction, catching my eye with a supportive nod. For a few minutes, I sat with the children as they showed me their favorite gifts and told me about their Christmas morning. The awkwardness began to dissolve in the face of their uncompromised affection. Eventually, Stephanie suggested we move to the dining room. "We have plenty of leftovers," she offered. "Have you eaten?" I had not had a real Christmas dinner, but food was the last thing on my mind. "I am fine," I assured her. "Dad, when was the last time you ate a proper meal?" The question held echoes of concern rather than accusation, reminiscent of how Amanda used to check in on my self-care habits. "Toast this morning," I admitted. "Then you are having leftovers," she said decisively, the tone so like her mother's that it momentarily took my breath away. As Brian and the kids returned to their movie, Stephanie and I moved to the dining room. She busied herself heating plates of turkey, stuffing, and vegetables while I sat at the table, feeling simultaneously out of place and exactly where I belonged. When she set the food before me and took a seat across the table, I noticed she had brought her laptop. "I thought maybe we could watch more of the videos," she suggested. There were some I had questions about, places and events I do not fully remember. For the next hour, we sat side by side, plates pushed aside, watching fragments of our shared past play out on the screen. A trip to the beach when Stephanie was 10, a school play where she had played the lead role. I had forgotten I had made it to that performance, but there was the evidence, my voice behind the camera whispering proudly to Amanda, "That is our girl." As we watched, Stephanie began to speak, haltingly at first, and then with increasing openness about how she had experienced our relationship growing up. "I was so angry with you for so long," she admitted. "Every time you missed something important to me, it felt like proof that I was not important to you, that your work would always come first." "You were always important," I insisted. "I just did not know how to show it properly. I thought providing for the family was enough. I thought occasional big moments would make up for daily absence. I was wrong. And after Mom died," Stephanie continued, "I think I blamed you for wasting the time you could have had with her, for all the moments you missed together. It was easier to be angry at you than to just feel the grief. I blamed myself too," I acknowledged. "Still do. Sometimes." The conversation was not easy. There were tears on both sides. Painful truths that had festered too long in silence finally brought into the light. But there was also a sense of unburdening, of walls beginning to crumble after standing firm for decades. "I am not saying everything is fixed," Stephanie said carefully as our conversation reached a natural pause. "There is a lot of history between us, a lot of hurt on both sides." "I know," I agreed. "I do not expect one evening to erase years of estrangement, but it feels like a beginning." She nodded slowly. "It does." From the living room, Noah called out that the movie was over. Moments later, he appeared in the doorway. "Can Grandpa stay tonight? Please. We have the guest room all ready. And tomorrow, We can play with my new cars. Stephanie looked at me, a silent question in her eyes. I waited, letting her make the decision, showing her through my patience that I would respect whatever boundaries she needed. If Grandpa wants to stay, that would be fine, she said finally. Noah cheered and ran back to tell his sister, leaving Stephanie and me alone again. I reached across the table, not quite touching her hand but offering the possibility of connection. Thank you, I said simply. She met my eyes directly for perhaps the first time that evening. This is just a first step, Dad. We have a long way to go. I know, I assured her. And I will be here for every step, for as long as you will let me. That night, I slept in Stephanie's guest room, surrounded by the sounds of a household at rest, so different from my empty home, where silence reigned and memories echoed. This was not a complete reconciliation, not yet, but it was a beginning, a seed of healing planted in the fertile ground of shared memories and cautious hope. For the first time in years, I fell asleep with a sense that the future might hold more connection than isolation, more healing than hurt. 6 months have passed since that Christmas turning point. Spring bloomed into summer, and with the changing seasons came gradual changes in my relationship with Stephanie and her family. The healing has not been straightforward or without setbacks, but the overall direction has been toward connection rather than division. We established a tradition of weekly dinners together. Every Thursday evening I join Stephanie, Brian, and the children at their home. Sometimes I bring dessert, sometimes I come early to help cook. These regular gatherings have provided a rhythm to our reconciliation, a dependable touchstone as we navigate the sometimes turbulent waters of rebuilding trust. Through these dinners and other shared activities, I have gotten to properly know my grandchildren again. Lily has shown me her art portfolio and confided her dreams of becoming an architect, perhaps influenced by her Uncle Thomas. Noah and I built a treehouse in their backyard, a project that consumed several weekends and resulted in not just a play space for him but a tangible symbol of our restored connection. More difficult but equally important have been the ongoing conversations between Stephanie and me. We have talked honestly about the past, about moments when my absence hurt her deeply, about times when she felt unseen or unimportant. I have listened without becoming defensive, acknowledging the validity of her feelings, even when the truth of her perceptions was painful to hear. For her part, Stephanie has come to better understand the pressures I faced as a surgeon, the impossible choices between equally important commitments, the weight of responsibility for patients' lives. This understanding has not erased the hurt of my absences, but has placed them in a context that allows for forgiveness to begin taking root. Both of us have acknowledged our roles in the estrangement that followed Amanda's death, my withdrawal into grief and work, her anger as a shield against deeper pain. The ways we both failed to reach across the growing divide when doing so might have prevented years of separation. One particularly meaningful conversation happened on the anniversary of Amanda's death. Stephanie and I visited the cemetery together, the first time we had done so as a pair rather than with the extended family. Standing before the headstone of the woman who had loved us both, we found words for feelings long suppressed. "I miss her every day," Stephanie admitted, tears tracking down her cheeks. "And every time I look in the mirror and see parts of her looking back at me, I wonder if I am making her proud." "She was always proud of you," I assured her. "And she would be so proud of you now, of your strength, your family, your willingness to try again with your old stubborn father." Stephanie smiled through her tears. She always said we were too alike, you and I. Too proud, too determined, too unwilling to bend. She was right. As usual, I acknowledged. That day marked a shift in our healing process. The shared grief, finally expressed rather than used as a wedge between us, became another bridge toward reconciliation. The pain of lost years cannot be recovered, a truth both Stephanie and I have had to accept. No amount of present connection can replace the birthdays, holidays, and ordinary days when estrangement kept us apart. This recognition has lent urgency to our reconciliation, a mutual determination not to waste whatever time remains to us. Forgiveness has come in stages, not as a single dramatic moment but as a series of small choices, daily decisions to move forward rather than remain anchored to past hurts. I have learned that true forgiveness does not erase consequences or magically heal all wounds. It simply opens the door to a future not determined by previous pain. New traditions have begun to take shape. Monthly family game nights that include Jackson and Thomas and their families when possible. Summer barbecues in my backyard. A weekend trip to the lake where we vacationed when the children were young. The approach of another Christmas brought both anticipation and anxiety. Would the progress of the past months hold firm during a season that had witnessed our most painful estrangement? Stephanie answered that question before I needed to ask it. "We want you with us this year," she said during a November dinner. "From Christmas Eve through as long as you want to stay. The kids are already planning which cookies to bake with you." The contrast with the previous year could not have been more stark or more welcome. This time, I helped decorate the tree, hung stockings with my grandchildren, and sat by the fire as Brian read The Night Before Christmas. When we exchanged gifts, there were no doors closed, no words of rejection, only the warmth of family reconnected. Reflecting on all that has transpired since that snowy night of turning away and turning back, I find myself humbled by the lessons learned so late in life. I understand now what I wish I had known decades ago, that presence matters more than presence, that being available for ordinary moments builds stronger bonds than occasional grand gestures, that work accolades cannot warm a solitary home or fill the void of disconnection. I have learned the courage it takes to face rejection and still try again, to offer love without guarantee of its return. I have experienced firsthand the healing power of honesty and vulnerability, how speaking difficult truths can lance wounds festering in silence. Most importantly, I have discovered that second chances sometimes come when least expected, wrapped not in shiny paper but in painful confrontations and tearful reconciliations. They ask more of us than first chances ever did. They require acknowledgement of failure, willingness to change, patience through the slow process of rebuilding trust. If you are watching this and find yourself estranged from someone you love, I encourage you not to wait for the perfect moment to reach out. Time passes quickly, and opportunities for reconnection may be fewer than we imagine. Be brave enough to make the first move, humble enough to accept responsibility for your part in the distance, patient enough to allow healing to unfold at its own pace. Have you experienced estrangement and reconciliation in your own family? What helped you bridge the divide? Share your stories in the comments below. If this story touched something in you, please like and subscribe to hear more reflections on family, forgiveness, and finding connection, even after years of distance. And if you know someone who might need to hear this message of hope and second chances, please share it with them. Thank you for listening to my story, and may your own family journeys lead to healing, however winding the path may be.